you ready for the mayhem?
Hosted by Mike, the Big Cheese.
welcome back to the Heavy Metal Mayhem Radio Show. It is June 26th, and we're closing out the month of June in a big way. We have Rev Taylor from Greyhawk calling in about a half hour, and the mighty Blothar from Gwar in the second half of the show. It's good to be back on the air. We were off last week for Father's Day. I hope everybody had a great one out there. I know I did. I had all my family in from Florida, so it was really nice to see them on top of my children and my grandchildren. So it was a great weekend. All right there, Destructor, Tear Down the Heavens. That comes off the Forever in Leather record from 2007. It's been a long time since they've put out a record. I think Decibel Casualties back in 2017 was the last record the band put out. And they are such a great band. There was a lot of years, when they weren't together in the mid to late 80s, going up until probably 2005, I think, when they got back together. They lost some members of the band over the years, but Dave put a great lineup together. He also has another band called Vulgar Devils. Check him out. Completely different than Destructor, but a really good hard rock metal mixture, I want to say, like somewhere in there. I think they have one record out, I believe, but it's a solid album, so if you get a chance, go and check it out. All right, we're going to get as much music on as we can today. We'll get to the news. How about we do a little Knight Rider? Armed Forces.
In the darker days of old, the law was the sword.
Yes, it was long ago. There was a strong man who lived by the sword.
band Jag Pans. I've said it before and I'll say it again. One of my all-time favorite bands. The Tyrant is some vocalist. Iron Shadows off their debut record from, I think, 83, maybe 82. I'm pretty sure it's 83, 1983. Jag Pans is in the studio right now recording their new record. It's the follow-up to the Deviant Chord, which came out also in 2017. That seems to be a key year for a lot of bands to put out their last records. So Jag Pans are well overdue. The Tyrant lives in Greece these days, so the rest of the band is together in the studio. They did a Facebook Live the other night, answering a lot of questions. So I'm really looking forward to that coming out. And we'll get Mark Briotti back on the show when that happens. All right, we have about 10 minutes or so until Rev calls in. We lost a good one the other day. The Dark Lord, John Krupe from Fallen Angel, died. John was a good friend and on this show many times over the years. The last time we had him on was right around when Cast Out of Heaven came out in 2018. A killer band from New York, from upstate New York in the Rochester area. All they have is the power metal demo that came out in 1985. And like a lot of bands, they hung around for a few years to maybe 89, 90, and then kind of disappeared after that. They actually started in 83, so they had about a 7-year run. I was lucky enough to see that original lineup live once or twice. And when, I think it was around 2009, he got in touch with me, John, and he's like, I got the band back together. I'm doing this whole series, books are involved in it. And about a year later, he sent me the Crawling Out of Hell CD, and it came with a graphic novel that he wrote. I mean, a real, full-size novel, and it was supposed to be like a 3-part trilogy, and each one was going to have a novel. And it was based on I want you to buy it, and read it and hear about the story, but it was really great. He put the second one out in 2018. It took a long time. The third one should have been out and done by now, but John got really sick during that time period. I think he had a cystic tumor. I don't like to talk about people's medical problems, but he spoke all about it on the show, so it's okay. He had a cystic tumor on his brainstem, and it knocked him out of commission for many years, so that's why it took so long to get another record out. And it doesn't look like we're ever going to get the third record. Somehow, somewhere, I'm hoping that it was recorded, and maybe some of the band members can kind of get it out there. I don't know if the novel was written yet. It would be great to complete the trilogy and John's legacy. Great guy, gonna miss him. I was hoping to have him back on the show when that record did come out, but it looks like that won't happen right now. So let's do a little Fallen Angel. Let me see. Maybe I have one thing off for every album and the demo, so I'm not really sure what I want to play here. Maybe we'll do Sinner's Vengeance. That's a classic one. man, how good is that? I was going to play the Terror Within, but Rev should be calling in any minute now. So instead of jumping into another tune and having to stop it, maybe we'll do it a little later on in the show. All right, while we wait for him to call next week, Brian Ross from Blitzkrieg and Satan is our guest, as well as Cody Souza from Hatred. So don't forget to tune in. It'll be the 4th of July weekend, so I know a lot of people have plans that might be away. If you're not here for the live show, you can always listen to the replays on 155 different sites. So they're right there for you. And we got a great bunch of guests coming up for the month of July. I'll be posting them up on our website at the end of the show tonight, so you'll know who's on. Pretty much all of them have been confirmed so far. I know Iman and John were talking in the chat room about Quiet Riot being pissed off because somebody's releasing the Alive and Well record again. I guess it's a bootleg version of the album or done without the permission. Nobody bought the original version of the record when it came out, so I don't know why they're so upset that people are going to buy this one over here. I mean, to me, Quiet Riot, completely non-relevant these days. I know they put Rudy Sarzo back in the group to kind of give it a little legitimacy, but even that doesn't work. They're just a joke. But it's funny because you go out there and you watch them. They play all the county fairs and the carnivals and the casinos. And there's a ton of people there. I get it. Most of them aren't coming just for Quiet Riot. There's like 175 other bands on these bills, so they're there for everybody. But it's kind of sad in a way when I look at them and I watch them play. I mean, I remember the first time I saw the band back in 1983 with that original classic lineup at Lamar, Brooklyn, and I was just, I was a big fan back then, mostly because I was a Randy Rhoads fan. He was in the band. I had those original two Quiet Riot records, Quiet Riot 1 and Quiet Riot 2. They were bootlegs that I got from Tower Records. They came from Japan. They cost me a small fortune in the early 80s, small fortune back then was maybe $10 or $11 for the record, which was a lot of money for like, a 13-year-old kid who was delivering newspapers for about $3 a week, but they were well worth the money, and I still have them in my collection till today, so something to be said about that, right? All right, so I don't know, maybe we'll play some Greyhawk while we wait for Rev to call. I'll give him a couple more minutes. If not, I have his phone number. I'll reach out to him. But let's see. Let me see if I can do a quick song so in case he does call, we don't have to stop it and start again. That's one thing I dislike about doing the show here, at least on when I did it on Block Talk Radio. We had a switchboard with a dial-out number, which was so much easier because I could put people on hold and tell them to wait a second while the song ends. I can't really do that here. If I can, I just don't know how yet. I haven't figured it all out. But we do have a lot of new music to get to tonight. I know John was talking about some of it in the chat before. He's not a fan of it, but we're going to have to get it on anyway. Rev, this is Mike. Is that you? Rev, can you hear me? Maybe that wasn't him. I know what, we're going to reach out to him. We'll give him a call. Give me 2 seconds here, and I'll get his number up, and we'll do that, okay? It's probably going to be a little better that way. All right. Give me one. So you know what? Let's play some Greyhawk while I get his number. Hang on. Rev, this is Mike. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing great. You were calling on my cell phone before, and I was trying to go between there and the studio phone to get you connected.
Oh, my bad.
It's okay. You're on the air live. Hey, listen, it's great to have you on here. I have to tell you, over the last couple of years, I've become such a major Greyhawk fan. It's a pleasure to talk to you today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on. Thanks for your kind words.
Oh, absolutely. I know you guys had a big weekend not long ago coming over here to the East Coast, playing at the Sword Brothers Festival. How did that go?
Oh, it was fantastic. It was the first year for that festival, and it was just really impressive how many folks came out. And I was really pleased to see how many people came from just all around the region. We had people coming down from Maine and people coming up from New York and Connecticut. And it was just really a great show of support for some traditional heavy metal and some young bands. And we just had a great time.
That's good. It's important. I mean, I think we need to start having more of these festivals here in the U.S. I mean, you know, most live shows were down for the last 2 years pretty much. You know, it just started up again a few months ago, at least here in the East Coast where we are. You know, it's been getting good, 2022. But I think we need more festivals because it brings a lot of people together from different areas and gives band, I think, a bigger audience at one shot to kind of get their message across.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great way to network with other musicians who have similar ideas. And I mean, it's a pretty tight-knit scene, as you know, and there's definitely this sense of community that it's really fun. You know, you see the same people in these different festivals across the country and party with them and have great conversations. And I mean, you get really, musical projects get born from things like that too. So it's great to stimulate the creativity. It's great to get people together. And I think it for a lot of bands, it makes more sense economically to, go out for a festival and play a really good, well-rehearsed set rather than trying to, be road warriors for 3 weeks. I mean, mad respect to bands who can do that on the regular, but it's not always practical for every project. And so festivals give an opportunity for, unusual situations, reunion shows, bands that don't get to play live a lot. And that's part of what makes festivals like that special too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, how's the local scene where you are now in Sal? Is it pretty good? Is it going on? Is it happening?
It's happening. Yeah. I mean, here in the Puget Sound region, we've got a good little clutch of bands. Some bands you've probably heard of: Skeletor, Solicitor, Beretta. We played with in Chicago recently, and there's a good set of bands down in Portland too, and up in Vancouver. So I guess you'd call that like the Cascadia heavy metal scene. There's a good, solid, 10 really good bands, I'd say, and a good fan base here. It's always harder, like out here on the West Coast, just because everything's a little hard. So trying to set up a festival like that out here, we do have some, but it's harder to get as much draw from the whole region.
Sure.
But yeah, there's some cool places out here. We lost one of our favorite venues over the pandemic, which is really sad. A place called the High Line in Capitol Hill in Seattle. But you know how it is. Like people love live music, and there's always like more venues. The nice thing about metal venues, it's like the Hydra. If one dies, like 5 new ones are going to sprout up.
That's the God's honest truth, and they come up all over the place. Rev, the Keepers of the Flame was the first record I got by you guys. That kind of took me back to Right Out before Call of the Hawk came out this year. And I for the 2 years that album was out, I never heard of you guys, what was going on, or anything about it. And that bothers me. Like, I hate when a band comes out and I don't know about them right away, because this is such good music. I mean, everybody should know about it. And with Keepers of the Flame, I think you guys really established yourselves. I mean, you struck out. You created, I think, a really unique sound. I mean, it's classic, it's modern, but it's unique, and I think that's the most important thing.
Well, yeah, thanks for saying so. It's really important to us to find our own sound, and I guess listening to that record, which is, we recorded it, close to 3 years ago now. Listening back to that, I'm really happy to hear all the experimentation. We tried a bunch of different stuff on that record, and I think we're still sort of at that time trying to figure out what exactly our sound was. But in the process of trying to figure that out, I think we kind of stumbled across some really cool moments. And there's a lot on that record I'm really proud of. So I'm glad to hear that you appreciate it too.
Yeah. When you say, you were trying to find yourself in the record, so you kind of experimented with different sounds and, I guess kind of see when the band was formed, was there like an initial plan saying, hey, this is what we should be, what we should sound like, or hey, let's just get together and jam this out and see what comes up?
Well, so the original core of the band was Jesse, who's our lead guitarist, who is also kind of the main composer for the band. He writes most of the riffs. And then Darren, our bass player, they got together and kind of bonded over their love of 80s metal. And they had I'd say a couple particular touchstones that they were kind of basing their stuff on. One, of course, Yngwie Malmsteen, especially, the first, I guess, 3 records, Marching Out and Rising Force and Trilogy. I don't know if those are actually the first ones, but I know those 3 records are a big deal for them. And something they talked about a lot, I know, was the first Queensryche EP, which is landmark everywhere, but especially here in the Northwest, because Queensryche's a Seattle band. And so, it's got a little bit of extra cachet here. And that EP, I know Darren talked about how he thinks like Lady Wore Black is the best heavy metal ballad ever written, and they really loved that sound, that little bit of neoclassical, a little bit progressive, but still rooted in just hard-hitting rock and roll. And so that's definitely what they were trying to start, and they put out an ad on Craigslist, and I think they kind of shuffled through a couple of lineups before they found me and the other guys who formed our initial lineup. And so yeah, I mean, they definitely had that vision of just kind of creating something that was rooted in that classic 80s sound with a couple particular influences. And then we kind of just, hung out, talked about what we liked, and just started to see what happened. They had some demos already together, and so I just started writing vocal parts for them and figuring out what worked for my voice and how I could make it fit with their vision. And sometimes I think it was a little bit different than what they had in mind, but sometimes that was in a way that was surprising and positive. And that's kind of how Ride Out came into fruition. And I'll say that, like, influences wise, as a band, the thing that we've always bonded over and the thing that we always come back to if we're a little bit lost or inspiration, we come back to Dio. And then we love Rainbow and Black Sabbath, but I think especially like the first 3 or 4 Dio albums, especially the Vivian Campbell ones for Jesse. Although I'd say the album that I listened to the most when I was recording my parts for Keepers of the Flame was Dream Evil. That was definitely a big influence on how I kind of envisioned Keepers of the Flame sounding. It was something that was kind of growing out of that slightly more late 80s, little bit of extra polish, but still the rock and roll core.
How do you go from being influenced by, like you say, the sound of Queensryche, Dio, Dream Evil? How do you go from taking what you hear and what you love and what you like and turning it into something that's strictly you guys, that isn't Dio, it isn't Queensryche?
I mean, I think that, like, the answer to that is we just try to be ourselves, because, Jesse's not Vivian Campbell, I'm not Ronnie, Darren's not Jimmy Bain, even though we love those players and a lot of other players like them. But, for me personally, at least as a vocalist, my voice is a little bit different than what you hear in classic heavy metal a lot of the time, because I'm a lower voice. I'm a baritone. I'm classically trained. I'm used to singing in the middle part of my voice, and I'm not used to singing those like mixed high notes that people like Bruce Dickinson and Rob Halford do. So a lot of times I'm running a different kind of vocal line, just because I want to be comfortable. I want to be able to express the lyrics as best I can. And sometimes that means taking a route that is not what the traditional, sometimes it feels like it's not what the best route would be. I just have to take a detour in terms of the vocal line for what I can actually do and for what shows me off the best. And then that ends up kind of pushing things in a slightly different direction. But for me, it's authenticity. I'm just trying to do what works for me. I'm not trying to worry too much about how much it does or doesn't sound like anybody else. I'm just trying to make it work. And I do kind of have that like Dio vocal approach in my head, kind of guiding me as I'm moving through it. But but sometimes you got to forge your own path because you got to do what works for your own abilities. That's true at any part of life.
Absolutely. And I'm looking at some live videos of you guys on YouTube. I mean, you can recreate what you do in the studio live. There's not much difference. I mean, which is really impressive because, what happened? I think we lost him. Let me call Rev back. I think we had a bad connection there.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system. 50566019336 is not available. At the tone, please record your message. When you've finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Yeah, bear with me. Let me get him back on the line again. You know what? We're just going to do this over the phone, I guess. Hey, Rev, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got disconnected.
Sorry about that. Reception's not so good around my house, so that might have been on my end.
That's okay. I know what we'll do through the cell phone. I'll just patch you in. That's all.
All right. Well, you were asking me about. You said you were checking out some live videos. And
Yeah.
That's the last thing I heard.
And how I was saying, like, I watched the live videos of you guys, and you really can recreate what you do in the studio and on record live, which is hard for a lot of bands. And when you go to write a song and you go to put the lyrics down and you go to do your vocal lines, do you say to yourself, you know what, I have to think about how I'm going to do this song maybe years from now if my voice isn't the same? And things change as you get older, and things you did when you were 20 you can't do when you're 30 or 40. And like you say, you listen to like maybe Def Leppard. Joe Elliott can't recreate live what he did in the studio. He can actually never do it live, even back in the 80s. Most of it was doctored up in the studio. But do you worry about how far to go in the studio with like putting stuff onto your voice?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, that's always a big concern. Like, and it's kind of striking a balance. Like you wanna. It's like running a race. You got to pace yourself. You got to do what you can actually do, because singing heavy metal is absolutely an athletic event.
Yeah.
That's part of the fun of it. That's part of what I love about traditional heavy metal is the high flying vocals, maintaining the intensity. But you've got to be an athlete. You got to look after your voice. And you got to think about how you're going to manage your energy level and your vocal tension and your breath and all of that over the course of a whole set or a whole recording session. So there's definitely a balance there. Like I want to, you want to take what's on the record and make it exciting and make it full of exciting moments. You want to show off harmonies. You want to show off good vocal arranging. But yeah, you don't really want to push it too hard. And so I don't know. I try to strike a balance. Like certain songs, I'll just intentionally leave them a little bit more bare with the intention of like that'll be a song that'll be good to put in late in the set, or it'll be a song I know I can pull off live even if I'm not feeling so good. And then some songs I'll push myself a little bit and be like, you know what, I'm not sure how I'm going to pull this off live, but I'm going to record it anyway, and then trust my future self to figure it out.
I hear that. Well, this year we were lucky because we got Call of the Hawk, a 5-song EP. It's been out about 4 months now. I mean, I think this really defines the band and where you're going in the future with your new music.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, we went through a lot in 2020 and 2021. I mean, everybody went through a lot with the pandemic, right? And we kind of released our big flagship debut album in the midst of the pandemic, which I guess is a mixed blessing because the themes on that record fit pretty well. I think I've had a lot of people tell me that they felt that album hit at the right time for them to give them a little extra boost and a little extra inspiration to get through that difficult year. And I love hearing that because that's exactly what I was hoping it would do. But at the same time, it's hard to put out an album and not be able to play any shows in support of it. And then, once we started playing shows, we got started again, and then we had the incident in Boise where Darren confronted the shooter and got shot. That was traumatic for everybody. It was really hard, and we dealt with a lot of media attention, and we're on the local news here in Seattle, and it was kind of a big deal, and that was a big expenditure of energy, and suddenly for a second all eyes were on us, and we kind of decided, well, we have some new material floating around. We had been planning on doing a full length follow-up to Keepers of the Flame, but we kind of decided, you know what, like, this is the time to like make a statement and put out a record and put out another EP. And for me personally, I love EPs. Maybe it's just because I've you know, I'm a millennial and I've got a short attention span, but there's something I like about, like, you know, the chances of putting out it's easier to put out a perfect EP than it is to put out a perfect album, just mathematically, you know? And so I like that idea. And so, yeah, we definitely kind of set out to make it a statement about what we're here to do and how we want to sound. And the title track, I mean, the lyrics are kind of about that. Like, that's actually a song that's kind of written about Greyhawk, you know? And that's what the title of the EP is about, like the call of the hawk. Like, you know, surprise, surprise, the hawk is us. We're the hawk. So, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. We tried to find a nice balance of, you know, maintaining just a hard-hitting EP that was going to keep up the energy for all 5 songs, but also giving it some twists and turns, giving it some flavors, some unique spices here and there, so every song feels different, but it feels like it belongs to the same whole. Yeah,
it's very true. Like you said, like having a short attention span because you're a millennial. I hear that so often for so many guests that I have on my show. And you know, when I had Skid Row in here years ago, they were putting out EP after EP. I said, why do you guys keep putting out EPs? They said, and they said the same thing you did, basically. We'd rather give you 4 or 5 really good songs that you're going to listen to and enjoy than to put out a full record that you're going to ignore half of, and then it's just like it's a waste. So that's what they were doing also.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for it. I mean, and it's interesting with LP albums because it's all kind of based on the formats, you know, vinyl, the legacy formats, right, that come from the golden age of rock and roll music. And then we kind of went through a CD period where albums got longer, too long if you ask me.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of back to, especially in a scene like ours, which has some retro dimensions to it, like people do kind of think in terms of physical formats and vinyl. And I think, you know, 45 minutes is a great length for an album. But I think there's a whole, like, especially, like I say, for modern ears, there's something great about an EP. Like, I don't know, for me, you know, a lot of times, I think a lot of people, like, have commutes, for example, where they drive or take the train to work or whatever, and it takes about half an hour, you know? Like, 45 minutes is actually a longer sitting for somebody in this world to just, like, sit and listen to a whole album, whether they're on a longer drive or something. But a lot of times, 25, 30 minutes is a time set that's kind of easy to fill. So I actually find, like, for that reason, when I'm listening to my vinyl collection, I end up spinning, you know, one half of a record a lot of times. So a lot of times I'll do something like I'll put on side A of Defenders of the Faith, for example, and then, you know, by that point maybe I'm ready to hear something a little different, so I'll throw on side B of Master of Puppets, you know.
Yeah. I want to know where you live that you only have a 30-minute commute, because here in New York it takes about 2 hours to go 4 miles.
Yeah, well, I mean, I live a little bit out of town. I live across the water from Seattle in a little town called Bremerton, which is it's a Navy-based town. It's a lot quieter, and you know, well, actually, I'm between jobs right now, but I've been, you know, commuting to another spot out in the country here, so it was just a 30-minute drive. But yeah, I mean, if I'm going to work in Seattle, it's a bit of a different story. Yeah, you know.
You were talking about short attention spans. Does that affect the way you write music? Do you feel like because people don't give things a chance today, you really got to grab them with like that first, you know, riff of the song, that opening hook to get them in, or does that play in like how you write music?
To some extent, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm thinking about it in terms of attention spans, but definitely with this genre of metal, you know, it's essentially structurally we're talking a form of pop music. Like you want to have a good chorus, you want to grab people, you want them to be able to, like, if they listen to the song one time, they should be able to take away some understanding of what that song's about and what, you know, we're trying to get them to feel with us, if that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, I take that, you know, something I do a lot is I imagine that I picture us on stage, and I picture us opening with the song I'm trying to write, because there's like something cool and almost like sacred about a band's opening song. You know, it's such an exciting moment when you go to see a band you like, and especially if you don't know the set list, you don't know how they're going to choose to introduce their music to you, and you never know. Like a lot of times, like you're watching a band for the first time, you've never heard of them, and that opening song is like, oh, what are you going to do? What do you have to show? How are you going to introduce all this? And so I try to, like, a lot of times when I'm writing, I've tried to write songs that we could open with and would grab people right away. If that makes sense.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
I want every song to be able to essentially function well as the first Greyhawk song someone hears.
Do you remember, like, early on when the band was first getting started, did you ever have one of those moments where, you know, you're out there for the first time, people really don't know who you are, you open up the show with that one song that you're talking about, and then you get, like, that one clap, and there's nobody else paying attention?
I mean, we've been pretty blessed, I think, with good gigs. You know, I'm pretty spoiled being the lead singer for this band, and part of it's just that, like, the players in this band are so good. I'm just so lucky to have linked up with such talented and experienced musicians, because we just always have managed to make an impression. You know, so even in the gigs we've played where there haven't been a lot of people there, we have managed to grab them and at least make some kind of impression in the first song. So I've almost, like, sometimes as a musician, and I know this from my other projects and other musical experiences, sometimes you throw your whole heart out there and it doesn't stick. Like, for whatever reason, it goes over someone's head, or they're just not really paying attention. So I know what that's like, but, like, I've almost never experienced that with Greyhawk. We've had almost all good gigs, because the band is so good. You know, I can't really speak for myself, but sometimes, like, when we do have a couple instrumental songs, or when there's like a solo break or something, I'll just be standing there on stage, like, listening to everybody play and just being like, holy shit, these guys are so good.
You know, I feel the band's come a long way really fast. I mean, does it feel that way to you, or do you feel like it's going at the right pace?
I mean, it's things have definitely happened for us pretty fast, but I think sometimes it's hard to tell from the point of origin. Like, I think from elsewhere in the country and elsewhere in the scene, it might be like, oh, Greyhawk just, like, showed up, but, like, for me, Greyhawk's been here the whole time. So, and a lot of the people I'm interacting with face to face are people who've known us the whole time. You know.
Yeah.
So it's felt like it's been a pretty good pace, and there's been some ups and downs because of the pandemic and everything, but I'm pretty happy with how it's been moving. I think it's been about the right pace. We've been hitting it pretty hard. We practice pretty consistently. We haven't taken a lot of breaks. We played a lot of gigs here in our region to just kind of sharpen our tools, and I'm pleased with it. We've made some intelligent moves, and I can't really take credit for that, like, because I didn't come into this project with a huge amount of experience, you know, marketing a band at this level or anything, but some of the guys in the band did, and just, you know, have learned from past mistakes, and I think we've just been lucky to have made some good moves and gotten the right kind of support to move us along, and so I'm pleased with it.
I mean, is it possible to do everything on your own, or do you need outside help sometimes? You need management, you need PR. I mean, a lot of bands put out their records on their own. Some people say, I won't do it without a label. A label doesn't offer the $1 million advances like they used to, but they do offer support. Most of them do, you know, maybe with touring or, you know, just promotional value. I mean, do you have to rely on other factors and make things move ahead, or can you kind of do it all on your own?
I think it's good to ask for help. To ask for specialized help. I mean, when we put out Right Out, we hired a little metal PR company called Clawhammer, and they charged, I want to say, something like $500 for a EP campaign, where they just, we wrote up a press release, and then we sent it out to magazines and zines, college radio stations, you know, labels and everything. And then that was just a really good investment. And we split it 5 ways, $100 a person. It's not that much. And we were able to get the music out there to some extent. I think that was a wise investment on our part, rather than trying to just market it ourselves to our friends and parents, you know. And then, you know, we kind of built on that. So we self-released the first album and got a label to do the physical pressing once we put it out digitally, and then we got label attention enough to get Fighter Records to sign us to put out Keepers of the Flame. So I think, I don't know, unless you're like really media savvy and really active online, and unless you really have your like Rolodex ready to go with some people to send your album to, it makes sense to hire somebody who does that for a living, or at least professionally.
I don't blame you. Rev, I'm not going to keep you much longer because I got a feeling we're about to lose each other again. I can see the bars on the phone going up and down. But what do you guys have planned for the rest of this year? I mean, I know you're going to Europe for some festivals later on, but what's happening for this year?
We're going to try to shift into a writing mode. I mean, like I said, we've been hitting it pretty hard, performing locally a lot, and we've been, we're getting a little tired. So we're gonna, I think for the fall, kind of step back from performing a little bit and focus on writing our next full length. Since we used our best material from our pandemic writing sessions for Call of the Hawk, we're kind of starting from scratch again. We've already got some really good ideas. So we're going to kind of shift into a writing mode. We've got a couple shows coming up, just a good old summer Seattle show at one of our favorite dive bars called The Kraken here in a couple weeks. And then we're going to be promoting we're doing a beer collaboration with a brewery in Yakima, Washington. We've collaborated with before. I don't even remember what point the official marketing on that is, so I might not be able to say too much, but there's going to be a beer coming out late summer, another Greyhawk beer. Should be awesome, and we're going to play a little bit to support that. Then after that, it's writing time until Germany in January.
That's going to be great. Hey, Rev, it was a pleasure talking. I'm sorry we had so much trouble connecting. We went between the studio phone, the cell phone, but we got it done. So I appreciate you being
absolutely.
A good sport.
Yeah, thanks so much for including me. It's great to talk to you, and hope we can do it again sometime.
We will when the next record comes out. You got it, buddy.
All right.
Take care, Rev. Bye-bye.
Adios.
All right, let's get on some more music.
Don't wait for magic. Don't wait for truth.
Don't wait for the Wizard, Greyhawk. I have to tell you, they are great. I go by their records. I have to apologize. That interview was all over the place. He was trying to call on Skype. Then my cell phone was ringing. I'm trying to get him back on the Skype. Then I tried calling from the studio number. He's calling me back on my cell phone. I'm sorry, there was a lot of dead air during that interview when we were trying to connect with each other. I had to stop the song because we got cut off. So I do apologize. We just got our own station number here at the Spreaker switchboard. So I'm trying to use that now, but a lot of people are still calling on the cell phone, and it makes a bad connection. But we got through it. But it threw me off because half things I wanted to ask I just couldn't get to because I kept trying to make sure we still connected. And that's very disappointing to me when that happens. But that is life. All right, Blothar from Gwar up next. We'll play some more music for the next 15 minutes or so until we talk to him. Let's see, so much going on here. There's so much new music we got to get to. I'm not going to play the new Ozzy. The new Ozzy is absolutely horrible. I mean, horrible. I mean, I thought the last record was bad. This one's even worse. I mean, ever since he hooked up with this guy, and I don't know how it came about, Andrew Watt, the shit has just gone downhill. I mean, I hate to even say this because, I was such a big Ozzy fan, and, going back to the Sabbath days and when he went solo in the 80s. But it's just what he's been doing for the last 15 or 20 years, in my opinion, hasn't been good. I mean, everything that came out from mid-90s and on, I just didn't care for personally, but it was, at least Zach Wild was involved in it, so it was a little decent sounding. But all these albums he's putting out, this guy Andrew Watt writing music for him, they're just horrible records. I mean, Ozzy cannot sing live at all anymore, so everything on this record is doctored up, and it's that same, auto-tuned voice. It's horrible. Absolutely horrible. And I hate to say, I mean, I saw the video of him a few weeks ago coming out of the hospital after surgery. He looked like he was on death's door. I mean, granted, I never thought he lived this long to begin with. Going back to the Ozzy I remember from the 70s and 80s, I never thought he'd make it past 40 or 50. But, he's outlived longer than anybody else thought he would. And God bless him for that. So it's hurtful. It's hard for me to say. It's just such a bad record. But it is. And then you go his website or his Facebook page, and you see all these people praising it. And these are not fans that go back to Ozzy with Sabbath or even the early days of the Blizzard of Oz. They're like these people that just hear him on pop radio today or top 40 radio. They just want to get on the Ozzy bandwagon because he's Ozzy. And they really know nothing about him because if they did, they could not possibly say that they like these new songs or this new music. Absolutely horrible. But the new Megadeth, I got to tell you, I haven't liked a lot of Megadeth stuff over the last 10, 12 years. I absolutely love this new Megadeth record so far. It has that classic sound to it. I know a lot of people disagree. But the sick, the dying, and the dead, I think it's going to be a good one for the band. So I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of it. I cannot wait for that to come out. Oh boy, I tell you, and Manowar, the new record. Manowar have been writing the same song for the last 35 years. They have not written a new song in 35 years. Just gave songs different titles, or have taken old titles and added different words to them. I mean, I haven't been. Hail to England was the last album that I actually liked by the band. So I really can't say much after that. The few albums after that with Ross the Boss were pretty good, but they were starting to get a little repetitive. It was like the same songs, the same themes, the same shit. It never ended, But they were actually, musically, they weren't that bad. Lyrically, they were kind of horrible, but musically, I didn't think they were that bad. But Manowar have not written a new original song in probably 3 decades. And now they just canceled. They didn't cancel. The promoter says they canceled. They said they didn't cancel. Manowar's getting the lawyers involved. Manowar has been involved in more lawsuits over canceled shows, I think, than any band in the history of the world, including Guns N' Roses have canceled while they were on stage. They've walked off and canceled. So I don't know what's going on. They were supposed to be booked to play at the Barcelona Rock Fest. I think this goes back about 2 years, maybe more, before the pandemic. And I don't know. They're saying that they tried to change the contract. The promoter's saying that they were asking for stuff that wasn't in the contract. And then they say, Manowar says they canceled because they got Anastasia to play. And they're getting the lawyers involved. What lawyers are you getting involved? You were probably given in advance what you kept. You didn't do the show. It didn't cost you any money. What are you suing for? Manowar have a habit of doing this all the time. It happened at Hellfest, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. The same issue. I mean, it's funny because when Manowar go on these world tours, their world tours consist of usually 3 countries, Germany, Greece, and maybe the Ukraine or the Baltics or somewhere over there. And I mean, they do have massive crowds that show up for them. I mean, either they're just that diehard over there, or they just can't get enough shows coming through the town. So when Manowar come to play, but when Manowar play here in the U.S., they play in these small venues. I mean, they can't sell out more than a 500-seat theater here in New York, their hometown at least. That's just the way it is. There's nothing but trouble with Manowar. I have to tell you, they are funny. All right, let's go. Let's do a little music. We'll cool down a little bit, and then we'll come back and we'll talk some more. How about we do some brand new, you know what? Let's do new Queens rock. I haven't actually heard it myself yet, so we'll listen to it together for the first time, then we'll do new Megadeth right after that.
torture and pain. I bash in your skull until no teeth remain. A most deadly weapon pulverizing your head. With each crushing blow, how you wish you were dead. Just when you think it's safe, I attack. We'll be back. When you least expect your fate, I attack. We'll be back. Rock it to your face, one move, big mistake. We'll be back. Let down your guard, full on frontal attack. I'll be back. No use screaming for mercy, no use making a sound. Still you step right up and get smacked back down. In the heat of battle, blood congeals on the floor. Another life force breathes out, another soul out the door. Antisocial, sadistic, the deity of war. Washed up body bags and I'm packing the morgue. No time for remorse over unclaimed remains. It's just frost with jets, dramatic circling the drain. Just when you think it's safe, I attack. We'll be back. When you least expect your fate, I attack. We'll be back. Rock it to your face, one move, big mistake. We'll be back. Let down your guard, full on frontal attack. I'll be back. mind you off before you start to fight. With bombs and guns, to come, it's English, the light. Try to not go on tonight, but I must take my side. Feel the earth's coffers was a lonely flower. Reminds the world how it was. But we trampled away with power. What a violence! What a violence! What a violence! What a violence!
All right, classic creator, Rite of Violence. I was going to play something off the new record, but I'll save it for next week. I thought maybe 3 new songs in a row might have been too much for people. Before that, Megadeth will be back. I think that has a classic Megadeth sound. You let me know what you think. Hopefully the rest of the record will fall to line like this song. I think it's a great song. And like I said, I haven't been a fan of a lot of the records that have been put out over the years. Definitely more consistent and better than anything Metallica's done since, Master of Puppets, in my opinion. But I really like this one so far. And right before that, brand new Queensryche, In Extremis. Now, if you had played me that song and say, hey, listen, I got a new band I want you to hear, I would say, yeah, it's pretty good. I like it. When you tell me it's Queensryche, it does not sound like Queensryche to me. It is a good song, and I like it. And I hope the rest of the record is the same way, but it just doesn't remind me of Queensryche. It doesn't sound like Queensryche. It doesn't even sound like the later era of Queensryche, which I really despised when Jeff Tate was just leading the band in a whole different direction than they should have been going. But it doesn't sound like classic Queensryche. It doesn't sound like later Queensryche. It doesn't sound like Queensryche at all. But it's not a bad song. It's a pretty good song. It just doesn't remind me of the band that I knew. All right. Well, it looks like there's trouble in paradise for Tyrant, the band out of California. Robert Lowe, I guess, is out of the band, as far as I can tell. They had to cancel their appearance at the Keepers of the Flame Festival. Apparently, Robert doesn't have a passport, can't get a passport. So, I mean, why would you go with a man who can't leave the country if you ever get shows out of the country? And let's face it, most of the legacy bands, the classic bands that have gotten back together, they go out and play festivals. They don't do a lot of touring. They don't go out and do a lot of shows, maybe a local show here and there, but their thing is getting onto these festivals all over the world, and they're going to play in front of a big audience. They come home and, they play a local show here or there. So why would they get involved in that? It's beyond me. But apparently the band didn't even know that he canceled. It looks like he emailed the promoter saying that he wasn't going to be able to make the show, and the rest of the band found out. Now I'm watching him and Greg Made a bassist going back and forth arguing. Or at least it's a one-way argument. Greg is just coming down on him and talking a lot of shit. I don't know. I mean, he had a falling out with his brother, and, that's why Glenn is not in the band singing anymore. I don't know if it was because of band business or, personal or family business. I have no idea. None of my business. But, I would take this opportunity maybe to try to patch it up with him and get him out there again. I mean, I saw them at the Defenders of Old Festival before they went to Baltimore to do the show. They did a one-off here in New York with October 31st, and it was a great show. Glenn really, he needed a little help. You know what? I'm talking and I'm talking. I don't even think the microphone was on. How does that sound? Oh my God! I talked all that time and the mic wasn't even on. Was I coming through? Yeah, the sound. Yeah, I know. I had the microphone off. I apologize. I didn't even realize it. We came out of the song. Oh, I was saying, some classic Creator right there. Right before that, new Megadeth, which I think is absolutely killer. I love it. Has a classic old school sound. I think they've been more consistent over the decades than Metallica have, putting out records. And before that, new Queensryche, In Extremis. Now, if you told me, like, listen to this new band I have, I would be like, yeah, it's a pretty good record. I like it. Who is it? But when you tell me it's Queensryche, it just doesn't sound like Queensryche. I don't know who it is. It's a good song, and if the rest of the record sounds that way, I'll absolutely love it. But I just don't recognize it as Queensryche. It doesn't sound like classic Queensryche. It doesn't even sound like later era Queensryche, where Jeff Tate was taking the band in a whole different direction. It just sounds like a whole different band. But it is a good song. I mean, I have to give them credit for that, See what happens. And then what I was saying, I think when the mic got cut off, was Tyrant out of California. Robert Lowe appears to be out of the band. He backed out of the Keepers of the Flame Festival in Mexico. Apparently he doesn't have a passport, so he can't leave the country. So I don't know why they would agree to the festival there. And they also had, I don't know if it was Keep It True or another one in Germany that they were supposed to be on a year or so ago. And they had to back out, well, it had to be over 2 years ago before the pandemic. They had to back out of that also because it doesn't have a passport. So when you're like a classic or a legacy band who really relies on playing festivals overseas and in Europe and in different places, you kind of got to look for somebody that can travel out of the country. So I don't know why they went with him. And I don't get it, but they went with this whole Dooms thing on the last record, Hereafter. They were never a doom metal band, Tyrant. Never. So I don't know why they kind of went with that direction. Maybe because Robert Lowe was the singer and they felt they had to. I don't know, but Glenn's not in the band. He hasn't been in the band for years. Him and Greg had a falling out. I don't know if it was over band business. I think Greg mentioned last time on the show that his brother didn't want to play live a lot. And I saw them when they came to New York to do a one-off before the Defenders of Old Festival, and he needed a lot of help vocally, and he was getting it like from a box on stage. Let's just put it that way, But he still sounded okay, so maybe he can get him back in the band just to go do the Keepers show and see what happens. But going on the third singer now, you never know what's going to happen with that band. We'll have to see. All right, boy, I had to repeat that all over again. All right, let's get to Gwar. The mighty Blothar is on the show tonight. Let's talk to him.
I'm all right. How are you? I'm in New Hampshire. I mean, that's...
Well, how good can that be?
Yeah, really. Exactly.
I hear you. Well, I mean, it's great to have you guys sort of back in a way. New record, tour coming up, I believe this week it starts. So a lot going on in the world of Gwar.
Well, yeah, I mean, actually the tour has been going on. We've been out for a little while now. But, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
And
there's a lot going on in the land of Gwar.
That's a good thing. Well, the new record, I have to tell you, the title alone, if that doesn't describe the era in the world we're living in today, I don't know what else does. And, Gwar's got their own universe, but this is really, topical.
Well, yes, it is. It truly is a new dark age. Humans are just on the way out.
And, well, we deserve to be.
Oh, I feel like that's true. Where are you located, anyway?
I'm in New York City.
There you go.
If you can't tell by the accent, I don't know what can.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I'll be catching you guys here in June when you come to New Jersey, so I'm looking forward to that. But, listening to this new record and going back to the last one, it feels like the band has got a whole new groove going on. It seems like the members are more willing to open up musically to what's happening and lyrically compared to what was done in the past. Is there like a new freedom in the writing process these last couple of years?
Well, I think that it's a combination of necessity, right? Like, I mean, we had to do some things differently because we had an unimaginable loss, right? I mean, you have like the person that's sort of mainly responsible for writing your lyrics, the person who, like, over time, Gwar had sort of shifted out of being an ensemble. It was always an ensemble effort, but people stopped recognizing that as much. And So, but once Odorous was gone, I mean, like, we really had to readjust how we made music. So we had to do what the people who exist in Gwar are good at. And that meant we had to change how we were doing things. And I guess you could cast that as freedom. I mean, certainly, I'm hesitant to do that because it sounds like a positive thing. And, I think maybe on balance it has been a positive thing for us, but, like, certainly a really difficult thing, a terrible thing that we managed to turn into something positive. It's really a better way to understand it. If that makes any sense at all.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as people would take it like, you're slagging Odorous and like the way he ran the band, but you're really not. You're just saying that people just weren't being as creative as they could have been back then because he kind of like, took care of the music part of it. Now everybody has that, opportunity to do that. And being a musician, that's what you want to do. And I don't take it any other way than that.
Yeah, that's right. You're exactly right. I mean, and it was especially like, we always wrote music. It was more like, just the lyrics and the vocal hook. But, and it is true that I have a very different style of putting together melodies. I mean, Odorous was very interested in being funny, and he was a very funny singer, and he was a great front man. But he would oftentimes, definitely not as interested in chasing down hooks as I am, and as I think the band is now. That's how you got those awesome records where you'd have like these big, hilarious rants that he would go on. But I mean, there is a price for that, right? I mean, and the price is, it's funny because we put together this set and people were laughing because there's 42 pages of lyrics for this set. Wow. Like if you print out all the lyrics, I mean, that's a lot of singing.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stuff to say, right? So, I try to keep it down to like, 1 page per song.
Yeah, the music has definitely been the focus, I think, over the last 2 records. I don't want to say not the lyrics, but I mean, there's more going on musically than lyrically with the last few albums.
Yeah, well, you give it some space, right? You let these sounds happen without singing on top of it, and it changes how people experience the music. So that's one thing that's different.
Yeah. I mean, you're like the last real link to like the original lines. I mean, like, being on the first record, the Hello record and everything. I mean, is Gwar the kind of band that can go on with nobody left in it, with people just coming in and out, replacing? Members have changed, names, and is this something that can go on and on forever?
I don't know. I think it can go on as long as the artists who are behind the visual image of Gwar, as long as those people are interested in participating, I think it can go on. So in other words, they can probably find somebody who can make some sounds that you could call Gwar, but the people who put on this conceptual side of the band, that's been very hard to replace, right? Like, and it's because of an ethos. It's because of an attitude about work. There's a lot of kids who are like, I love Gwar. I want to do special effects. I'll be in Gwar. And it's like, really? You're going to do this? Because it's really fucking hard.
Yeah.
And once they see what it's about, they don't want to do it, right? So, so I think it goes on as long as the people who are putting it on and who are designing costumes and writing shows, as long as they want it to go on.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of safe to say, I would imagine, that going back to the early days of the band, it was more going to be like a spoof on the whole metal scene and everything going on. But it started changing as time went on.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And when did you realize that this was, I mean, you guys created, like, was the artistic part of this bigger than the music back then?
That's absolutely. I mean, yeah, for Hello, it's funny, you mentioned that record. I mean, most of those songs already existed when we went, because Gwar had this long, probably about 2 years of existence before Hello was recorded. And if not 3 years, maybe even, because, that was 88, and 85 was pretty much the first time that we played out in Richmond. So the musicians, the majority of the musicians who were on that record were not, even Oderus himself, right? Like he had been not the singer, but the guitar player of Gwar when we started. So, it was a big difference. And most of those songs, there's only about 4 songs that are on Hello that were written by the group of musicians who recorded it. Back then, I would say that the focus was definitely on performance. And, but you could already tell that Oderus was hilarious. He was writing really fucking funny lyrics and adding a kind of absurd element, right? Like, that wasn't there in the early days, the very, very early days of the band. But yeah, I mean, without a doubt, over time, music became a more important part. It's funny because if you watch videos from that time period, we're all just playing a whole lot. Like, I watch it and I'm like, what in the hell am I doing on bass guitar there? It's like, and it was because we were really conscious of the fact that people would look at us and be like, oh, these guys can't play, because they're wearing the outfits. And it's funny, I mean, because that has stuck with Gwar. I mean, there's still people who are convinced that we lip sync. We occasionally get so. I'll go ahead and call this person out because it was so goddamn insulting. Phil from Municipal Waste.
Yeah.
He approached me and was like, you guys need some songs written. I'll write some songs for you. It's like, how about you fucking go suck your own dick writing songs for us? We don't need your fucking songs. Because he believed that, like other people do, I mean, no offense to Phil, but although I've just said some really offensive things, didn't I? He thought that we weren't writing our own shit,
I mean, back in the 80s, I mean, a lot of metalheads didn't kind of have a sense of humor. I always found it amusing what you guys are doing, and I've been with you on this ride for 30-something years now. But a lot of people don't have a sense of humor. They don't see the humor in what you were doing back then. When did it start to change for you guys? Where you said, you know what? We can really make this, more than it is.
Well, it's interesting. When we first started, people viewed Gwar very much as an art project. So you had there were a lot of the fandom for Gwar was like we were playing with bands like Kramer's Bongwater, Vulcan Death Grip, right? Like, which was Ann Magnuson's project. Like, so this is performance art that Gwar was kind of slotted into at first. Back then, the audience being a bunch of sort of art school kids, I think, understood the irony of the band. As the band got more popular, it became more questionable whether people understood that it was a joke, right? Like that it was that there was humor involved, but usually they did. And we've tried to make it, painfully obvious that we don't really want people to go out and cut heads off or anything like that.
Yeah.
But you do what you can. I mean, people are only as smart as they are, right? There's always going to be some dildo who thinks that Gwar believes you should put your foot up a woman's pussy. But obviously we don't believe that.
Yeah. you know, when it comes to the music, and writing music, especially today, I mean, does everything sort of have to fit into the universe of Gwar, or does the music kind of stand on its own now? Does everything have to have a theme and be a part of it, or just kind of free to write whatever you wanted to make it fit in?
Yeah, there's definitely more freedom for, you know, if anything, it's been a sort of a process of finding out what does work with the storyline of Gwar, and it gives you a lot to write about, right? That you're writing about this other universe, and you know, so the content, it's kind of convenient, you know, having that story because you can just tell stories in the songs. So in and of itself, it's not like the idea hasn't become a prison for us or anything. It really just gives us a framework to speak from. But definitely over time, I think that the songs we've always had that though. Like, so I feel kind of dumb saying over time because, we had songs like Scallop Boat, right? It's just based on a letter that this guy sent, and the lyrics are exactly that, right? I used to do some Ivy Coke, and, I was in prison for a long time, and I always loved you guys, so we just made it into a song, and we've always done that kind of thing, so we kind of tell the story of Gwar. Part of that story is the absurdity of humanity and writing songs that reflect that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad. I know you're out of the band for a while. I'm glad you're back. Thinking back on that time, I mean, if you didn't come back to the band and everything that went down over the last few years, do you think the band would have survived?
Probably. I mean, they would have survived in a different form. I do think it was easier for fans to accept a singer that had sung for the band before, and that was our logic, really. I mean, the whole way that it got started with me coming back was just that, I was the only person who had ever really sung for the band more than just like a song here and there. So, it seemed to be just a familiar voice in a way. I also really studied Oderus's style a lot, and I had written a lot of lyrics for the band as well. So, those things made it less of a difficult transition. I don't know whether the band would have folded without it, though. I feel like Gwar is so resilient. I mean, it's ridiculous how resilient it is in a way. I mean, and sometimes I'm not even sure it's a positive thing. It's like I get sick. I mean, I had COVID on this trip, and I'm the lead fucking singer. It's like if you got, if Maynard gets sick, then Tool's not playing, right? Pete Hamilton just went down in Hamilton. In Helmet. And that'd be funny if his band was called Hamilton, though, wouldn't it? He went down with COVID. They canceled their fucking tour. That's how it is. And Gwar, from the beginning, we've been anonymous enough that we don't have to do that, right? And also, though, and I don't think people realize this, we've been fucking talented enough that, really, the lead singer goes down, well, the guitar player's a fucking first-rate singer, so put a mic in front of him. The bass player's a first-rate singer, put a mic in front of him. And that's what we did to keep it going. So, I don't see Anthrax doing that, right? It's like, that's just what something that's special about Gwar, I think.
Yeah, I think most people would want to see Anthrax get COVID, that way they wouldn't have to perform. That's just my opinion on that. But, yeah, I mean, it's been crazy the last couple of years. I mean, what's going on. When you set up a lengthy tour like you just did, is that something that plays into your mind? You know, we're going here, we're going there. Are they going to shut things down again? Is this city going to shut? Like New York was like draconian, like California.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that we've seen the last pandemic. I can tell you that. And the world feels a lot more fragile. Everything feels different. And it is different. I mean, I don't need to. That's not news for anybody. But I mean, until they figure out some sort of a long-term solution to that kind of shit, then it's like it just starts to look like economic despair is always going to be right around the corner. So hopefully, we can science our way out of this bullshit. But I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens. Hey, Blothar, I'm not going to keep you, man. I know you're doing these things all day long today. I'll give you a little break between now and the next one. And I can't wait to catch you guys in New Jersey next week. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great show.
Man.
And I'll be there up front. Stay healthy between now and then. I want to see you up on stage.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You got it, my friend. Take care. Have a great day.
All right.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
Blood Libel. All right, I want to thank Blothar from Gwar And Rev Taylor from Greyhawk. Tonight's show was an unmitigated disaster from start to finish. Phone calls dropped, dead air, mic went out. You name it, it happened tonight. But you know what? It's over. So go enjoy your week. I will see you guys next Sunday night. Hopefully, technically, things will be better. We have Brian Ross from Blitzkrieg and Satan on the show next weekend, as well as Cody Sousa from Hatred. See you guys then. Let's wrap it up with some Angel Witch. Good night, everybody. Have a great week.